Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome this morning to our event. The event of COVID-19, what are the effects of COVID-19, and specifically dealing with the changes in the CPA profession. So I'm Bruce Singer, and I'm CEO of Bizon Capital Corporation CFO Services Division, which provides chief financial officers to clients on a temporary and part-time basis. And I want to take a moment to introduce our great panel. And perhaps you can start, Jerry.
Jerry Suker. Great to be here with everybody. I am the managing partner of Crowe Soberman, a firm that is Midtown Toronto, been around for about 63 years. We're about 180 people and deal with high net worth mid-market clients.
Okay, it's Massimo Marinelli. I'm the managing partner of assurance for EY. Wear two hats, that hat, and as well as I am a client serving partner, so I have 3 clients I currently work on.
Thank you. Thank you. Tasha?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tasha Batstone. I am the Vice President of External Relations and Business Development at CPA Canada. In that role, I'm responsible for a number of things, but in particular, our professional learning and development and the pre-certification education program.
Thank you. Christy?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Christy Carscallon. I'm the Canadian Managing Partner of Audit for KPMG. And similar to Massimo, I also am a client service partner.
Thank you.
Hi.
Oswald?
I'm VP of Tax at CPA Canada. Before joining CPA Canada, I was the National Tax Partner at BDO Canada.
Thank you. Melanie?
Melanie Russell. I'm with Kalux Valuations, CPA, CA, CBV, practice in valuations, dispute resolution, and forensic accounting, and also run a program called GTA Accountants Network, offering some PD program for CPAs and financial professionals.
Great. And Mark Belash?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mark Belash. I'm president. I have a dual role today. I'm well, triple role. One is moderator for today's session. I'm also president of Bizon Capital Corporation and also president of TorontoJobs.ca. So I run a few different companies, but I'm also on the board of the Halton Peel CPA Association. I've been on that for 25 years now or so as well. So welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to start. Jerry, we'll start with you. How has client customer service of Crowe Soberman been impacted by the events brought on by COVID-19?
So, a few things. First of all, this is a new field for all of us, and everything that we're doing is, motoring along in a real. Let's try it, see if it works, and if it doesn't, we'll try something else. So everything in my mind is brand new. We try to figure out and go on to 5 key points, and I'll run through those 5 points pretty quick. Communication. So for us, like all of us, working here, communication is the key. Those days of meeting your client and sitting face to face are no longer, and who knows when they're going to be. We spent a lot of time getting our staff, getting our partners to start calling clients, talking to them, even if they've got nothing other than, hey, hi, how are you? How are you coping with being in a room, need to be the basement or upstairs? In addition, lots of publications through email, not overdoing it. So those, seeing 2 or 3 emails a day from the same place gets the unsubscribe pretty fast. The second thing is risk. And when I talk about risk, I talk about risk of doing work for clients that, really we should not be doing. Clients who are holding on for life or clients who are doing things that do not follow the rules, especially where you can't sit down and see them. And a risk on that is doing work and not getting paid for it. That's a pure business practical standpoint. The key there is we've got clients who are 30, 40 years clients who will unfortunately not survive this, considering this may go on for a fair amount of time. Third thing is patience. All of us are month-end driven. We got extension for T1s. We got extensions for filings, and clients, you can see it and hear it through their voice and see it if you're on a Zoom call. their patients are almost to the end, and it's bringing them through the use of getting on the subsidies, filing their returns, filing their corporate stuff, filing any information. And, patience has become, excuse me, a very, very big issue today because we're month-end driven. We rush to get stuff done on the month end and we move to the next month. And patience with regard to billing as well, and collections and dealing with clients and trying to help them through this process. Again, talking to clients, bringing them through it, hand-holding, that's what we all are very good at. Compassion. Again, I come back to those two words of patience and compassion because, with compassion, you're dealing with people who are beyond themselves. That's within your own firm. You've got staff and partners who have small children, school-age children. They've got those kids to deal with. They've got a practice to deal with. And so it's compassion of, if we can't do it today, let's do it tomorrow, or let's do it another day. To the point of insisting that people take these breaks. Those days of, 60 hours, 70 hours a week just cannot be done and hope for good mental health. And the last item is flexibility. And leave people, they're all professionals. They're all good at what they do. We've all done our jobs and trained most of these people. Be flexible with your people, but also flexible with your clients. If a client is having issues, can't get it in the right format, help them out. If you can't go onto the secured portal, get somebody to walk them through it. Being compassionate, having the patience, and being flexible will be key for us. And that's really what we're trying to do.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Jerry. Okay, Massimo, what has your team and EY experienced in terms of what has shifted or changed with respect to the financial and reporting environment, again, due to COVID-19?
Thanks, Bruce. Can you hear me?
Oh, Massimo, yes, thank you.
Can you hear?
Okay, yeah, you're good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so, once this started, every day has been a challenge, especially in the early periods in terms of information that companies were trying to absorb, and more importantly, reliable information, especially given the uncertain times and trying to regain some of the trust through the financial reporting piece. The impact on the financial reporting is probably not the first thing that comes to mind, as I heard Barry say, but it is a consequence of the pandemic, and it's probably more important than ever to ensure that as preparers of financial statements, our clients and the auditors, in some cases where they're public companies, the audit committees are keenly focused on that type of information. The biggest issue has been navigating some of the complexity around financial reporting and providing that information with shareholders. And I think some of the meaningful disclosures that companies are putting into their financial statements is probably where you can really get some focus on that. We've had some board committees and audit committees actually meet on a weekly basis just to deal with some of these issues. And I think some of the issues are really around keeping change with some of the key performance indicators. Some of our companies highlight some of the key performance indicators, and those are changing rapidly in an uncertain environment as to what does the future present itself. The financial condition of the companies, the operating performance. There's been some shifting in regulatory compliance with the ability to delay for public companies some of their financial reporting. What we saw was also a bit of a shift in the way investors and regulators assess and interpret the non-financial performance as well, looking at more of the corporate value of the organization as well, beyond just the financial reporting piece of it. I think, what I saw in the Q1, which is the March quarters, and what we're seeing currently is a lot of different scenario plans that companies are going through as it relates to stress tests, ER, enterprise risk management type issues. And in the context of trying to provide that transparency and communication to their stakeholders, whether it's the shareholders, boards, or just the financial community in itself. And then in light some of these other issues that we're seeing is also how fast trying to understand the complexity of the, companies have covenants or debt and have to restructure some of their legal requirements and disclosures around that. As Jerry said, this probably hit us, meaning clients and ourselves, fairly quickly. And I think the areas which are critical are really around the liquidity and providing some guidance around liquidity, financing, financial modeling, impairment. So a lot of the key indicators that stakeholders are really keenly interested in and want more and more transparency. And I think that's been driven through some of the disclosures that have been out there. So I think that's some of the key issues, Bruce. It's really around how fast it actually hit the companies and how they'd have to really jump on providing that transparency to their stakeholders.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, Tasha, as a leading professional brand in Canada and internationally, how do we want to be remembered during and as a profession as we come through the other side of the pandemic?
Thanks, Bruce. At CPA Canada, we've spent a lot of time thinking about that very question. And interestingly, I was on an international call with leaders of many accounting bodies around the world last week. And that was the main point of discussion as well, is how do we want to be recognized and how do we want to be remembered as supporting the economy through this change. And I think it comes down to exactly what you've heard from Massimo and Jerry and the other speakers so far, is that we really want to be remembered as being those trusted business advisors, who helped Canadian business not only survive the economic challenges occurring as a result of COVID, but actually are prepared to move their businesses into what this new post-COVID world is going to look like and really setting them up to thrive. So it's, it's tongue in cheek, but I would say it's that survive and thrive mentality. We know that the world is going to look very different. New business models, digital services, e-commerce, virtual workforces, nimble and agile business models, those things were all coming towards us before COVID ever hit. But I think now it's just been massively accelerated. The reality of it is we've shifted to a data-driven economy very quickly. And I think all businesses are out there looking for new ways to add value in that kind of an economy. So for our profession, when you go back and you look, whether you're advising a board of directors, whether you're advising from a professional services perspective, a client, whether you are working in a finance department, whether you're working in the public sector, the interesting thing about the CPA profession is our members, touch every part of the Canadian economy. And so I think from CPA Canada's perspective, it's about making sure our members have the information they need, the training they need, and the guidance they need to help them really help the businesses that are going to be so important to the success of the Canadian economy going forward, be prepared to not only, as I said, survive, but also thrive in this new economy.
Thank you, Tasha. Thank you. Okay, Christy, what insights can you share that due to the current environment, again, has come to light with respect to, it could be a complex accounting matter, or in your area, stock-based compensation, business combinations, asset impairment? What can you share about that? Let's talk about that for a moment.
Sure, thank you. So I think the first thing I would say is it is not easy doing what we do in this environment. The clarity of what will happen in the future is gone. So when you look at any complex accounting matters and the things that we are dealing with as we work through year ends or quarterly reviews, it's all around estimates and future-looking information. So looking at the future, will the company be around and continue to operate as a going concern? Looking at asset impairment, as you pointed out, and what do future cash flows look like? Really, no one has any idea, because no one knows what coming out of the pandemic will look like. As Massimo said, a lot of times what we are doing is scenario planning and looking at the different scenarios that companies deal with. We are providing a lot of advice to management because they don't know what this looks like either. So how do we work through this together? I would also say disclosure is key, because the stakeholders need to understand the uncertainty, where the judgments are in making some of these decisions. All of those things really are key to navigating through the uncertainty. Just one other thing I would add, following up on Tasha's response, I think it's, and I'm proud of the fact that in many provinces across the country that the profession has been declared an essential service. And it really goes to the role that we have in capital markets and in keeping the economy going. And I think it's all something that we should all remember.
And be proud of.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you, Kristen. Bruce, okay, Bruce. What are your thoughts with respect to the current tax system in Canada and how that system has been able to handle the issues dealing with the challenges brought on by the pandemic?
Thanks. Yeah, I was going to highlight on two different things. One's administrative and one's maybe just talking about taxation more from a fiscal perspective. To start off with the administrative part, CPA Canada has been calling for a review of the tax system for a number of years. And in normal times, one of the things that we were talking about is the complexity of the system. And I think that's showing itself actually when you look at personal taxation in particular. In Canada, the CRA has access to just about all income for most individuals, things that are missing are rental income, business income, that kind of thing. But if you compare, say, Canada to a place like New Zealand, in New Zealand, their motto is broad-based and low rates. So they very much frown on tax credits and deductions and prefer low rates. In Canada, we have a lot of credits and some deductions, and I think the complications start to show itself. In New Zealand, they basically produce a tax return for you online because there really aren't many deductions and credits that you can claim. In Canada, one of the big problems has been that you can't finish off a tax return until you have everything. And there's been a lot of discussion around deadlines. I think there'll be more on June 1st coming soon in terms of relief for people who aren't going to be able to file on time. There's been a lot of trouble with lower income and vulnerable people from the perspective they rely on volunteer tax clinics, and it hasn't been possible to do that in a big way yet. CRA and volunteers are looking at trying to do them virtually, but that's challenging as well. In a place like New Zealand, though, what will happen is they populate the tax returns with the income, and then they'll give you a proposed assessment. You're allowed to make changes to it. If you do have something that is allowed, which are very few things, you can adjust for that as well. So I haven't talked to them lately, but I suspect things are going much more smoothly there. So it is a concern. I think complication and especially the extent to which we build the social benefits around getting a tax return filed on time. It is showing to be a problem at a time like this. And I think it is something to look at once this is all over to see if there's a way to simplify the system. From an economic point of view, my big concern really is that we were going into this with pretty high tax rates and high deficits. And it's a concern, I think, in terms of how are we going to right the ship afterwards. One issue in particular is Canada focuses a lot of revenue on personal income tax and income taxes generally, and not as much on consumption tax. So I think that might have to be something that's looked at later as well. The rates on individuals, especially in corporations, are a little on the high side. So we'll have to see how that works out. So I think something might be coming maybe on GST in the future. That seems to be the best source to raise more money if we have to. One thing, though, I would say that's very positive, our tax administrator, the Canada Revenue Agency, they are ahead of their peers, I think, when it comes to technology. Some people might be surprised at that, but when you compare it to other jurisdictions, they're actually ahead of the curve. They've done an excellent job of rolling out these assistance programs in terms of getting money into the people who need it. They gave us a lot more flexibility. We didn't have to rely totally on deferring things. And we were able to get money out under new programs pretty quickly. So I think the CRA does deserve a lot of credit for that.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Bruce. Okay, this is, we're going to a second round of questions. Melanie, thank you.
Okay, so to Jerry. So in round one, you talked about Crowe Soberman's clients. What about the partners at Crowe Soberman? How are they dealing with COVID-19 issues, partners and staff, and how has the leadership dealt with those issues?
Well, it's an interesting process. I mean, again, when you're in the office and you can walk around and see 170 people, 180 people, you've got your summer picnic and winter party. It's easy to say hello to everyone. And I would say that from the partners, associates, and staff, and it doesn't matter if it's professional staff, admin staff, support staff, everyone's dealing with the uncertainty of the future. And that uncertainty of the future it consists of a number of things. They're dealing with clients who sometimes literally are holding on for life, are uncertain where they're going to get, the next cash flow deposit, where they're going to get some bank support. The uncertainty of, how they're going to survive in an environment like this, that is being at home in a room, need to be upstairs in a bedroom or in an office, or downstairs in a basement with few windows, need to be with 2 screens, 3 screens, 4 screens. How are they going to be able to survive mentally, doing that work? And so it is both the partners and the staff. Those people who are in homes, who can walk around and go to the next room, are a little easier than a 700 or 800 square foot condo or apartment. Those who are living with someone else and not by themselves even have it a little better. But those people who are by themselves, the mental health issues start building. And so, we've recognized it, and we've recognized it in talking to people. Again, a little easier than maybe Christy and Massimo in only having 175, 180 people. And so we started talking with individual groups, and need to be the senior managers, the managers, getting onto the staff. I have a partners meeting now once a week as opposed to once a month or once every other month. I have a management committee every day, which we're now slowing down because it's nice. It's getting nice out there, so people can go for a little bit of a walk. And it's talking and finding out what everybody is thinking. And so we've brought a couple things in play. Number one is we've broken down the firm into the normal groups: managers, senior managers, audit, assurance, consulting, tax. And I am having a Zoom meeting like this with a maximum of 8 people. I decided to stay away from a mass, message from the MP, mainly because I didn't have a U.S. flag behind me or any of that stuff. And I'm hearing from people that, they saw the end of the tunnel normally at April 30th. Now they see the end of the tunnel at May 31st, maybe at June, but July, August, September is a little uncertain. And that's what's getting to people. We've now offered some, mental health help via Zoom, either private or in a group. So we're starting with the group sessions, getting on those group sessions, different dealing with your kids, dealing with a spouse, dealing by yourself. So you don't have to sit through all 5. You can sit through 1 or 2 of them, whatever is applicable, to your situation. Again, constant communication. In addition to a lot of the other people who are in public practice, also have a client base, and I'm hearing from my clients the uncertainty and the pressure that's being put on us. We are the trusted advisors, and so it's staying calm, taking that calmness, and going back to your staff and other partners. I'm sometimes surprised at a young partner who is stressing out on the future, where they've got 20 or 25 years left to go, saying, I don't know if I could do this for 20 or 25 years. So it's really talking to them, communicating, and being as honest as possible and upfront with people, and not trying to sugarcoat it. It's not easy. I think Christy said it is very, very difficult. This is a tough, tough time. It's a tough time not only for businesses, but it's a tough, tough time for people. And I've got it easy. My kids are married and out. I've just got my wife and myself here, and it's easy to deal with. So I think it's, again, getting to my, being compassionate to even our staff and our partners, and giving them some suggestions of take a day off. You've got a weekend that's coming up that's raining, put in 2 or 3 hours and take that Friday off, or take that Monday off. That's nice. Get some air. Get out there and do something different. You want to go play golf, you want to do something. I've also been a realist with them and tried to get their head around, we're not getting back to the office so fast. I want to be an optimist, and far from a pessimist, but I do not want to put anybody at risk. We can do our work from here. We can't service the clients the way we did in the past, but I don't want to put anybody at risk. So I just want to get their head in that frame of mind that things will, get there. We're here to help. Got some suggestions, ask it.
Great, thank you, Jerry. Over to Massimo. What innovations or changes do you see coming out of this to meet the demands or needs of key stakeholders such as businesses, business owners, regulators, investors, financial statement users?
Thanks, Melanie. I think I would start off by saying that I think businesses currently have been adopting innovative technologies as they make transformative changes. And the audit profession has had to do that in any case because our clients have been doing it. What I think has happened is that the drive to digitization and the pace in which we were transforming has changed significantly. I'm not sure if some of you follow McKinsey's Charting the Path to the Next Normal, which I kind of find interesting. They update it every day. But now what they're looking at is how COVID-19 is causing for a need for acceleration in the business plans and digital strategies that they haven't seen before, essentially going from 3 tiers of speed down to 2 and driving changes through that. What we've seen is and I think I heard this earlier from one of the presenters, that the data mindset has shifted. Now data definitely has a seat at the table, and any kind of data-driven technology is going to be critical, both revolutionizing our profession. I think we need to be aligned to data-driven technology, both in terms of accessing information that our clients have or other information, and also streamlining the workflows and how quickly we can do the work. We will, and we are going to probably see more leveraging of data to solve complex problems, help us look at questions and answers differently, take smarter actions, and enrich also the client experience as we provide more information around data and technology and the output to our clients. We'll see this through our audit process for sure, and we're seeing it already, but I think it'll move a lot quicker. Many others, the technology to drive audit change is significant. We're seeing a lot of our clients adopting new technologies, and I know we're using AI-driven advanced analytical tools to drive some of our analysis and our audit. So that'll be, I think, accelerated to go deeper into the audit. We'll look at larger, analyze larger populations of data, and in a quicker or shorter period of time. Helps us understand the business better, understand the risks that are lying there. You know, it's a couple of other things that we're looking at is also leveraging robotic process automation to drive a different workforce than we have in the past. And I think a lot of it is also driving technology different into each of the processes our people currently do, so that we will have a much more standardized, repetitive process being done by computers, if you want to say that, or robotics, and more analytical done or analyzing done by our people and our. Melanie asked is really, we were going down this path, accelerated it significantly, probably tenfold in my mind, as I know we're working at EY thinking about what we call the future of audit, and what we were looking at implementing 5 years from now has now become a 2021 discussion. So I'll stop there, Melanie.
Thanks, Massimo. Over to Tasha. So in the first round, you talked about the profession needing to be nimble, agile, pivoting, et cetera. What steps are being taken by CPA Canada to try to achieve the objectives that it sees CPAs should undertake during these most unusual set of circumstances currently?
Thanks. I would say, the easiest way to look at this is we put it into 3 buckets. So the first bucket, and Bruce can certainly speak to this probably a lot more eloquently than I can, is really around some of the work that we're doing here and now just to help people through the current crisis. And that's really, getting information to help our members navigate the various stimulus measures that have been developed by government so they're best prepared to advise their clients and businesses. There was a massive outreach from our members looking for that kind of guidance, and Bruce and his team have done an extraordinary job of providing a lot of information that I think has been really, really helpful. We've also been working with the Canadian and global standard setters to get guidance out to members, regarding the application of accounting and assurance auditing standards, particularly around areas such as going concern, risk, alternate procedures to support audit opinions. There's a lot of information out there that needs to be shared so our members are prepared. And then finally, we've been working with the regulators to get guidance to members. What has to happen in terms of, meeting the regulatory requirements and still meeting the needs of the clients and the businesses that they serve. So there's definitely an enormous amount of work that's happening right now. And then I would say the second phase is that we're probably starting to pivot on right now is just sort of looking at as I said to you in my earlier comments about the survive and thrive, and more focused on how do we help businesses develop that resiliency that they're going to need to survive and to do well into the future. So we have a financial literacy program. We've done extraordinarily well in terms of being able to do outreach. We've developed a number of webinars for small businesses that are focusing on areas such as business resiliency. I'm just trying to think, survival, understanding debt ratios, access to financing, all the questions that small businesses need to have answers to so that they can look to try to move into the future and bring their businesses back through the COVID crisis. And we're looking at developing new materials to help our members provide guidance around business continuity, risk assessments, and other areas that are critical to long-term business success. So again, that's the next phase of what we're looking at. And then interestingly enough, in 2018, CPA Canada had launched a significant initiative called Foresight. And the objective for Foresight was to really look at the role of professional accountants in the information age. What do we need to do going forward as we move into a digital economy to help businesses survive, to help businesses adapt, to help businesses move into this information age? And as part of that exercise back in the fall of 2018, we went through a scenario planning process. And surprisingly, or not surprisingly, one of the scenarios we actually anticipated was the impact of a global pandemic and what that would mean for business, what it would mean for the profession, and how our members would need to adapt to be able to serve the needs of the clients and the business community. And there was two areas of focus that really came out of that scenario planning exercise. And this goes back, I think, Massimo, to the point that you made earlier. One was definitely about data and the value of data going forward, and how we need to become experts in treating data as a valuable asset that it is. We've spent a lot of time and effort working with financial information, which is one source of data. But the reality of it is we need to look at data more broadly, because it's going to be the goal that businesses are going to run on going forward. And how do we ensure that data is trusted? How do we ensure that it's used appropriately? How do we make sure privacy considerations are taken into account? There's a vast number of questions around the ethical use of data and how we can help businesses leverage this very valuable asset. And I think there's a huge role for CPAs to play in that. And like I said, what COVID has done is only accelerate the need to be much more prevalent. And then I would say the second part is really around value. What drives value creation? We've been spending a lot of time at CPA Canada thinking about, how do companies create value? How do they measure performance going forward? Because we know that whilst in the past a lot of value was driven by financials, the reality of it is, and we can see it every day through the COVID crisis, value is being driven by not only what your shareholders see, but what stakeholders see you do and do the right things, whether that's how you treat your employees, whether that's how you treat customers. It's the focus on helping others, giving back. All of those are becoming very substantive indicators of what an organization's value is going to be going forward. So if the role of the CPA in the past has been about trying to capture that value and move it forward in an organization, or on the back end trying to report on that value creation that's happened, how does our role need to shift and change in a world where value is defined very differently? And how do we prepare our members to be able to be active participants in an economy that's driven by a very different sense of value? So we're doing quite a bit of work in that space, and I think it's actually been surprising how well that's now, or how relevant that is now becoming to the world even more quickly in a post-COVID environment.
Great. Thank you very much, Tasha. On to Christy. What stands out in KPMG's culture that has really made a unique difference to help the firm successfully chart the COVID-19 waters?
Thanks, Melanie. So I'd say hands down, the resilience of our people. I think about it often, but who would have thought 3.5 months ago we would be in such a situation as we are now? And it was literally overnight. And our people have adapted so well. We have, similar to what Jerry talked about, we've done and implemented all different kinds of supports in terms of mental health, reaching out and communicating to our teams. We collaborate way differently than we would have not even 6 months ago. But the resilience of our people and how they have adapted to this new environment goes without saying is unbelievable. The second thing I would say that has helped us through, and Massimo talked about it, is innovation. And we really had to accelerate some of the things we are doing around innovation, data and analytics, how we conduct our work remotely. It's just all of those things are critical. We now start thinking about, instead of moving people to where the work is, how do we move the work to where our people are? So geography is less important than it was historically. All of those things are our culture is evolving to, but I'd say the single most important thing is our people and the way we now collaborate together and have all Zoom meetings like this, get together remotely so that no one feels alone.
Thank you very much. and Bruce. So Tasha talked about CPA Canada anticipating global pandemic and obviously leading our profession being in the forefront. In your opinion, is there anything that will come out or has come out of COVID-19 that can help us to positively and further differentiate us as CPAs in the tax area?
Yeah, thanks. I'll talk about a couple of things coming out of the pandemic. There was also a bit of a question around how the tax system might change. I mentioned before the structure of taxes. I'm not sure what's going to come of that. It's a little early, but one thing I wanted to talk about is just the CRA in a couple of different ways. The one thing that's become fairly clear in discussions with them is that there's going to be a big backlog of work for them when things start to get back to normal. And there's already been some discussions about are there ways that we can maybe get through the backlog of work in a more efficient manner. So I'm hoping that there might be more there that we can sort of make into more of a permanent process as opposed to sort of clearing up the backlog. I think one of the things that has been really rewarding, I think, for us at CPA Canada in terms of work in the past year or so is working with CRA's scientific research and experimental development area. They're making fairly major changes in terms of how they administer the system, and they look really positive. And if you sort of connect the dots, some of the things they're talking about, I think, would make sense in terms of tax administration more generally as well. And if you sort of match that up with the need to be more, I think, strategic as CRA part, at least over the next year or so, in terms of how they're going to administer the tax system, there might be something positive coming out of that just for the future. Maybe CRA will focus a little more on making things easier for taxpayers who want to be compliant, maybe focus more on those who aren't. So we could see some changes maybe in outlook as well. The other thing I'd mention, though, is that we had a good relationship with CRA going into this. We have a framework agreement where we have various joint committees with them, but things have just taken off since this started in terms of working together. I noticed last week that one of the assistant commissioners and the one I've been dealing with said to the House Common Finance Committee in terms of what outreach they've been doing, he said we've been in contact with CPA Canada on almost a daily basis, which is true. I've been involved in helping them actually draft things or review them and that sort of thing. So I think that all is positive for the profession more generally as well. I think they're seen as a trusted partner almost. The government doesn't like talking about partnership per se, but I think it does put us in a position over and above many other groups with perspective that they are reaching out to us now regularly. And some of the things they're reaching out on are things they've never asked about before. So I see that all as positive. And to the extent we can keep the momentum in terms of improving the relationship, I'm hoping can be used to extend that out to members a bit more, maybe a different approach when they're dealing with clients as CPAs rather than others. We've always been talking to them about are there ways that we can leverage the work that our members do for clients that's different than what other people do. So can't talk about that kind of thing now with them. They've got a lot of other issues to deal with. That is something I want to discuss with CRA afterwards because the relationship's never been stronger.
Great. Very nice to see that CPA Canada has been such a leader in the tax area as well as accounting standards and assurance standards. So I think looks like we've got about 12 minutes left. We should probably turn to some Q&A and maybe Mark can go forward with that.
Yeah, so a little bit of the lightning round here because we're got about 6 minutes before we're going to do our final wrap up. So maybe you can just keep your answers to maybe 1 or 2 minutes, and that way we get through some of the Q&A that have come in. So thanks again for all your help and support. So for Christy, impact on career opportunities for upcoming professionals. Will there be less positions? Like, how do you see things changing in terms of job and careers?
So a great question. I think in the long term, there will still be terrific opportunities for professionals. And our aspiration is to still grow all of those things. I think the skill sets that our people will need will be different than they have needed historically. So we've talked about innovation, we've talked about the move to technology. So all of those things will become more and more important. I think the challenge that we as a profession have, we've historically attracted people to the profession because they can work with high performing teams. They're working collaboratively in groups, and that has changed now for the foreseeable future as you are working in your home office. So I think those are things that we collectively need to deal with to make people feel like they are part of a high performing team. But I think there is still lots of opportunity for people.
Okay, great. Massimo, over to you. Just 1 or 2 minutes for each person so we can get around one more round of questions. How are leaders ensuring effective training under the new conditions? Maybe just a couple of comments.
That's a good point. The one thing we've started to do for ongoing training is really, we were positioning this even before the COVID crisis. It was getting into more of a short virtual training and trying to deal with some of the compact issues that are coming our way. So we were moving to virtual anyway. There has always been, as Christy said, a need to have a collaborative approach to having teams working together. Some of the training, whether it's client type training, we've done through, using Microsoft Teams. We've had teams do morning starts and closing end of day starts to discuss issues and discuss that type of training that would be sort of on the job type training. I think the challenge will be in the future is how do we augment the training to deal with not just the virtual aspect of it, but also the amount of content that people can absorb virtually, because spending 2 hours on a Weeble is very difficult. We started this process. I know that some of the other Big Four have done it with their summer internship program that's starting and really trying to drive that through the current period and see some of the learnings that come out of it. But it goes back to technology and data. I think that's the way we're going to try to drive it forward.
Okay, good. Jerry, how has COVID changed how your firm onboards new clients?
Well, we had probably about a year ago, client acceptance became a very big issue for two reasons. Number one, just the quality of the client, the ability of the client to continue, and the quality of the staff that they've got to prepare need to be the financial statements in an audit situation or public entity situation, or even the working paper files. So we still do the same, research on that client acceptance, on that potentially new client. For us, like everyone else, most of those clients are coming to us on referrals. Price is not become a big issue these days. It's service and how we're going to service them. Technology is going to be a big issue. We cleaned up our technology about 8 months ago, thank goodness. And I think security is a big issue. But communicating with those clients and listening to what their issues are and listening to what their needs are, we'll get a good feel if that's the right client for us. The other thing is, I come back to this issue of dealing with staff and partners, and we've got staff like all firms have been around for a long time. Partners have been around for, like myself, almost 36 years, and it's important that we treat the staff as important as these new clients. And if the new client is coming in with what we think is grief and aggravation, that grief and aggravation is going to go down to the staff. And that's one of the things we want to avoid, especially now.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Jerry. A couple more questions real quick. So Tasha, what can CPA rally around behind all this? Like, is there something that we can all as CPAs say, hey, we're rallying behind this, around this? Is there anything that coming out from CPA or any thoughts on that?
Well, I think, really we can rally behind the kinds of support that we're providing to the Canadian economy. You know, as I said earlier, CPAs touch every aspect of the Canadian economy. You know, they're in the public sector, they're working with clients, they're embedded in businesses, they're working in healthcare, they're working in technology. You know, and we have it's a very powerful message to say that, you know, you're touching every part of the Canadian economy, and your members are there to provide support and to really help this economy bounce back or recover once the COVID crisis is over. And I think that becomes a really important message. And Krista, you mentioned about the fact that the profession has been declared an essential service in many provinces. To me, that only demonstrates how valuable the services that our members provide are perceived by those in government. And the work that Bruce has been doing with government and the way that we've been able to interact with government through this whole process, to me, just demonstrates the incredible value that the profession and our members provide to the Canadian economy.
Excellent. Okay, great. Thanks very much. Finally, Bruce, what's the role of AI in the future of tax in 1 minute? Just kidding. Take 2 minutes.
Well, that's a good question, actually. You know, technology-wise, actually, I look at it in two different ways. I'm not sure it's AI or a really sophisticated process, but I can see sort of the preparation of tax returns become less and less involved with humans. So if the tax system especially could simplify somewhat, going to my original thought, I think we could greatly simplify the system with technology. In terms of more complicated issues, you know, that's an interesting one. I think that's a tougher nut to crack. Like, will it actually be able to do tax research for you? I think that one's a little less clear. I think basic research, yes, maybe more complicated, not so much. But on tax administration, there are huge opportunities if we manage to simplify the system.
Sounds great. Thanks very much. Thanks, everybody, for all your input. I'm going to turn it now over to Bruce Singer to do some wrap up, but thank you very much.
Just want to wrap up. First, I want to give a special thank you to our marketing manager, Christina, who I tell you is just doing a phenomenal job. And I just wanted to recognize her that you don't see behind the scenes the work, the tireless work she does. Emailing me sometimes 1 o'clock in the morning. She's working away to prepare for this thing. And I just want to really express my thank you. Anyways, so I also want to thank everybody for doing this today. Massimo, Jerry, Bruce Ball, Christy, Tasha, and also my partners in this venture, Mark and Melanie. We all put a really good effort as a team effort. And just want to add one more thing. Personally, on a personal note, I'm very proud to be a CPA in Canada. And things like this really show pride. And it's a wonderful thing. And I wanted to thank everybody for doing this today. And we all appreciate it. And thank you to the participants. And I'm sure you got a lot out of it. Things are changing by the day here, and we're all learning as we go. And I thank you. And on that note, anybody have any last comments they want to make? Otherwise, we're going to sign off and have a wonderful day.
Thanks for the invitation, Bruce and Melanie and everyone. It was great, and great seeing everyone who I don't see a lot of, but best wishes to all, and everyone, please be safe.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Take
Bye-bye.
care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks.